Alright, welcome back to my Nioh Level 1 with several restrictions playthroughs boss compilation. And in this part I'm covering all the remaining bosses of the main game with the exception of the two final bosses. Unfortunately, this part is basically a compilation of the least interesting bosses in the game. Regardless, let's continue with Saika Magochi or something. So as you probably know, a very efficient tactic is to use kunais or shuriken to knock him out of the air. But I'm not allowed to use items. However, as you will see later on in this fight, you can also knock him down with your swords. You simply don't have the benefit of doing it from a distance. Now this boss can be quite tricky, mainly because of his bombs and his constant blocking. The arena is already filled with fire, and when he drops bombs, such a large area becomes a complete dead zone. And when you can get hits in, after a few hits he will start blocking your attacks. Fortunately, a lot of his attacks can be avoided by circling around him. However, you need to be constantly alert for when he flies up into the air, so you can get out of the way in time. Because if he grabs you, you're dead, and when he throws bombs you already have to be far out of the way. However, when you manage to hit him when he's in the air, you can do massive damage to him. And for obvious reasons, once the lightning effect activates, a slowed down version of this boss becomes a lot easier to deal with. Alright, another human boss, and this one is quite uninteresting in my opinion. Probably one of my least favorite boss fights. Not because there is something specifically wrong with it, but basically because he's just a souped up version of a regular spear enemy. And you almost fight him the same way. He has this very cheap ground swipe move that is difficult to consistently dodge because of the angle rather than the timing, which is a bit hard to explain, and it's something you hardly have any control over anyway. What is to your benefit though is that he can easily be stun locked, even without depleting all of his ki. Once he activates his living weapon, it actually enlarges the hitboxes of his attacks, which I get it because of the aura around it, but yeah. Fortunately, if you deplete his ki, that automatically gets him out of living weapon mode. In the end, it's just a very forgettable boss fight. As I said before, the boss fight against human characters are generally speaking not that great in this game. At least in my opinion. Okay, so I know I don't sound particularly excited so far in this episode, but now, oh my fucking god. Now we have the worst boss in the entire main game, and in my opinion one of the worst boss fights I know of. Other than the awesome music, which was already used in the White Tiger fight by the way, so it's not exclusive to this one, I am 100% negative about this boss. I hate everything about this fight. It's unfair, it's inconsistent, it's nonsensical, it's chaotic. It starts out with a pillar crashing down on him for some reason, which has no effect whatsoever. It's just all bad. The tracking on his attacks are a nightmare and even more magnetic than anything else in the game. The hit detection is bullshit. His jumping grab attack is worse than a homing missile and basically requires you to already be close to him before he even does it. Pretty much the same goes for his Guardian Spirit attack. And you constantly need to run around like a bitch, trying to get him to jump off the cliff so you can get some free hits in, preferably on his tail because that knocks him down. This boss is shit incarnate. Now you may want to say that how can a boss be inconsistent and unfair if you can beat him with these limitations? Well, that has nothing to do with it. That's basically like if you spend enough time in a room filled with shit, eventually you will get used to the smell and it won't be that bad. But you're still in a room filled with shit. This boss is just bad. Simple as that. Alright, Oda is actually a pretty alright human boss fight. Not great, but not bad either. The most effective approach is to parry him, like against Ukatsu. The only difference is that you get far less opportunities to parry him. You basically have to wait out each of his Guardian Spirit phases before you get another chance. And that actually makes him interesting, because he has a different phase for each element. Regardless of which element, initially it's all about getting away from him. And it depends on the element what his follow-up attack is going to be. Lightning is the same bolts from the sky as from Nioh, but more bolts, so don't get fooled by that. Earth has AoEs on the ground, making a large part of the arena a dead zone. Wind attacks are similar to Ishida Mitsunari's attacks, but a lot less chaotic. Fire means that he will disappear and attacks from above, meaning that you need to get far out of the way because of the explosion that follows. And water means that he will shoot ice projectiles like Yuki Onna, but also much easier to dodge. Now, because of story reasons, you don't actually have to kill him. The fight automatically ends when his life bar is around 25%. Now, for some reason I had the music turned off, and I can't remember why. In fact, I had the music turned off in the fight against the 8-headed serpent as well, and I actually had to put it back in afterwards. But honestly, I don't even remember why I turned it off in the first place. Okay then, the fight against the main villain of the story. And he's lame. Very lame. One of the lamest villains ever. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks that. This guy is a big fan of blocking your attacks. However, you can easily deplete his ki by just keep attacking him when he blocks. And when it's depleted, you can do some massive damage when he's knocked down. Other than that, his snake attack is a bit chaotic, so it's best to move back and just move from side to side to avoid it. His most dangerous attack is his grab, where he practically rips your heart out. That is a guaranteed one-hit kill, and it's pretty fast, so you need to be constantly focused to immediately react if you see his hand moving backwards. And if you don't react before it flashes, you are probably going to be dead. When he summons that serpent and there's fire around him, don't get near him, because after 2 seconds or so, a large explosion will follow. Now that's a rule in general, because there's always an AoE around him when he summons that serpent, but the fire one has the most range and therefore is the most dangerous. Other than that, he has quite a bit of health, so in my opinion it's more about endurance than skill in the end. Alright, only the 2 final bosses remain, but those are definitely the hardest, at least for me. So stay tuned for the final episode and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video.